Since the beginning of racing, when the first green flag would drop, the competition would be as exciting and as breathtaking as it is today. A look back at the good old days will prove just that, when man and machine would defy all the laws, and a steel post would become more than just a death-defying object. But even in those days, it was still a test of man and machinery. Who would be the best and take the biggest chance? Those chances for some would end their racing careers, but for others it would be just another day of tough competition at the office, where end over end, spilling and thrilling had become a way of life. But those spills and those thrills didn't stop there. They continued on, and on they would go. For some days at the office, it was just too tough for man to comprehend. But for others, it was just another day of trying to beat the odds. But now, in the 80s and the 90s, the competition proves even greater. The speeds were more intense. And for Phil Bartol, the excitement and the thrill of the spill was still there. But that was just the beginning, as man could still walk away. As the cars got stronger, so didn't the speed and the excitement. From running 3 to 4 wide when one car would turn, as several would make it by. From getting airborne, grenading, heading through the smoke, and not sometimes making it. The spills of a delayed reaction, where man and machine could slide, fly, bounce, and sometimes stop, even back on their wheels. But the speeds grew to be even more intense, and the competition proved to be more competitive, when hitting the wall at a ton was all part of racing. And as always, some would make it through, but others would not, as they would face the destruction of equipment. The King Richard Petty showed that even the best in the circuit could do a pirouette spin, and the competition would squeak by, and some would go for a long, safe ride down through the infield. And fire, the most feared thing of them all, would become a part of racing. At Daytona, this fiery situation would be one that many would remember for many a race to come. From Daytona International Speedway, the fires and the destruction of man attempting to get away from perhaps the biggest feared thing in motorsports today. And how about running wheel to wheel and hitting at a ton at the Thompson Speedway in Thompson, Connecticut? And Davey Allison, who now flies at the front of the field, flew through the center of the infield at Daytona in a ride that he wouldn't forget. Up, up, and away, down, and underway. Heavy action on pit road, but it was Davey Allison who would drive back to the pits. Quick pit work would prove to be the difference. And what about Wild Bill? A wild ride for Wild Bill Elliott. And that wasn't the only wild ride of the day. From Daytona, it looks good from the outside and just as bizarre from the inside, as the end results was a lot of wrecked equipment. And fires and high speeds at the banks of Daytona? Well, yes, they had them too. And what about leaving the draft? Not the way that you intended, as a pirouette spin would cause this chain reaction, taking out several of the front-running machines. But changes like this were not a part of all events, as a red flag would stop one and begin another form of destruction. Through the smoke and the melee, no place to go, can't see who's going where. The end results was more badly wrecked equipment. And how about trying to make it 3 wide, up on 2 wheels, more like a thrill show than a Winston Cup event, back down on 2, back down on 4, when suddenly there was more. And how about 4 cars spinning simultaneously? 1 car on its roof down in the grass, literally digging up the green. But in this event, digging up the green wasn't a part of the show. And how about trying to see where you were heading when the front was bent? Or how about holding on to a spot, then bouncing off the wall and trying to maintain it? The wall might have been tough, but not as tough as this situation could be for some. 2 cars down to the inside, 1 up wide at Daytona. But the frustration will show on some drivers' face, and a barrel roll like no other. Classic end over end with nothing left. But somehow the driver will walk away. And how about spins in reverse and spins forward? But they all seem to make it okay. And more great spinning action down the back straightaway at Daytona. Even the Seagulls had a bird's eye view of this one. How about trying to make it through this? Well, it's just become a way of life in competition during speed weeks as the racing world is set on its end. And from, of course, the New Hampshire International Speedway, almost the thrill of victory. Definitely the spill of defeat. And how about high, wide, and handsome? Cope tries to gather it back. But unfortunately, he copes with the inside wall with car number 10. But that's just the beginning. What about more of the same? More of the spills and more of the thrills. A look from the inside. Is it as exciting as the outside? As one driver tries to hold on, as another tries to hold the car down. And more hitting and slamming and crashing and sliding and waiting for that stop. But that's just the beginning. There's more of the best. There's more testing of who can run through the turns flat out, who can hold their car down and keep it off the wall. For some, it might look easy, but for others, it's a whole different story. How about checking out the green and racing both on the asphalt and on the track with fiery eruptions from Charlotte? Well, one driver will be able to get away from this situation. But as he attempts to get away, he's going to be facing a hot foot. But he still is okay. A look back at it once again will show you how it all began so innocently. A shot to the rear, a hit to the back end of the machine, an eruption in the fuel cell. The car spins around and heads to the bottom side of the racetrack, completely vulnerable to be hit by yet another car. But somehow this driver is okay. And back to more great super speedway competition. It was more spins, more smoke, and more melee. Imagine trying to see and get through all of this without hitting somebody or something. And even though this looks so simple, you can see at these speeds, hitting the wall can make your car a full size to a subcompact. How about hitting at these speeds and then sliding out of control some 100 feet? The King Richard Petty would run well on the outside, but not that well, as he'd have to use a cushion of another Winston Cup friend. 4 cars spinning, backing and thrashing, but still somehow they're all okay. And how about stepping out of the draft just for a moment, swapping a little bit of paint, feeling the power of the horsepower and the bumps of the pavement, running evenly matched. No real problem here. Well, too soon to call. Then everybody got backed up, and even a veteran like Earnhardt shows that being one tough customer still might not be tough enough, as some would make it and some would not. Now imagine if you had the opportunity to do it all over again. Well, we do. It looks so harmless when it all begins. But from something as harmless as a spin erupts something as disastrous, with smoke and racing equipment destroyed beyond recognition.